During a video conference at the office, I accidentally called our boss hubby instead of boss. The chat was filled with 666 terms indicating praise or admiration. I was so embarrassed. To my surprise, my boss raised an eyebrow and asked, is there something? I was like, oh no. I clenched my toes. After I said hubby, I took a silent glance at the number of people online for the meeting. 741. Miles' profile picture took up most of the screen. Even through my phone, I could guess his mocking expression. I was so upset. My phone kept vibrating, with colleagues' heads unmarked with gossip. I wanted to cry but couldn't. Just when I was about to explain, Miles ended the meeting. I suddenly have some personal matters. We'll continue the meeting tomorrow. Great. It felt like the situation was only getting worse. The phone buzzed, and Miles sent a video message. I looked in the mirror and was shocked. Where did the monkey butt come from? Natalie, I didn't catch what you said earlier. Can you say it again? Next time, call when there are fewer people. Don't exaggerate private matters. My cheeks were burning even more. I jumped off the bed and started fuming. It was a slip of the tongue. Miles didn't speak, but his smirk made me feel he was up to no good. I never really understood how the bond between Miles and me became so deep. It was probably just because we lived in the same family compound. Sometimes we were like comrades, other times like rivals. At family gatherings, it was either him crying or me wailing. Looking back, it seems we became enemies over a trivial high school evening study session. It was simply because I took a boy's snacks without sharing them with him. Miles, red-faced with anger, said, Natalie, I'm going to put you under my five-finger mountain. Who would have thought that such a joke would actually turn into reality? Miles was incredibly rude and rebellious. When we were in elementary school, I had pigtails, and he would pull my ponytail every day shouting, Giddy up, giddy up. I was so annoyed that I cried to his house. Only when his uncle gave him a good spanking did I feel better. In middle school, nearly half of the lunch my mom packed for me ended up in his stomach. By high school, we were finally in different classes, but if a male classmate and I planned to go home together, Miles would deflate my bike tires in front of me. I was so angry that I made him carry my bike home, yet he kept grinning behind me, showing his big teeth. So I vowed to stay far away from this annoying pest in college. And indeed, my wish came true. Miles had lower scores than me, and our colleges were in opposite directions. Before we left, he cried and said, Natalie, take care of yourself alone in a new place. Haha, thanks for the invite, but your absence is my greatest blessing. After enjoying 4 years of college freedom, my parents said they had found me an excellent job, 6 insurances, 2 funds, free accommodation, and an $8,000 monthly salary. I was so happy I ran straight home. On my first day at the job, Miles was sitting in my office, grinning. Natalie, long time no see. I gritted my teeth. Ha ha ha, can I still leave now? Of course, I turned to leave, but then his slight voice came. There's a breach of contract penalty for leaving within 3 months of salary. And just like that, I was really under Miles' five-finger mountain. When I returned to the office, my colleagues were giving me knowing looks. Some close ones even patted my shoulder and called me boss lady. I had no choice but to go to Miles' office, only to find people inside. Sorry, I'll come back later. The colleagues exchanged glances and quickly left after seeing Miles' expression. Soon, it was just me and Miles. Miles raised an eyebrow, lounging against his desk. Miss me after just one night? I gave him a punch with gritted teeth. I really misspoke last night. You need to explain. This also reflects poorly on you, doesn't it? Miles dramatically clutched his chest and took a deep breath. Everyone's eyes are sharp. They only believe what they see. Even though I'm the boss, I can't forcefully change the narrative. I raised my hand again. Miles coughed, adjusted his suit, and said, Attention, everyone. The meeting will start promptly at 9. I nodded in satisfaction. My mom invites you to dinner at my place tonight. I was surprised by Miles' cooperation. Maybe he suddenly had a change of heart. But I needed to clear things up before his rebellious streak kicked in. Before 9, I went to the meeting room with my notebook, but everyone was already there before me. The entire room was filled, except for one spot next to Miles. Under everyone's meaningful stares, I gritted my teeth and Saturday down. Miles walked in and, without changing his expression, Saturday down. Let's continue from yesterday's meeting. He spoke for 10 minutes. I was on pins and needles, desperately kicking Miles' shin under the table. He suddenly stopped and glanced at me. A side note, I folded my hands in anticipation, looking sincerely at all the colleagues. Explain, quickly explain. I heard a lot of rumors today. Miles tapped the desk with his fingertips. Everyone should focus on work and not get too concerned with the leader's personal life. Of course, if there's anything else, I will invite everyone to join. I was stunned, turning my head to look at Miles. What did he just say? Colleagues exchanged glances and then laughed. Well, let's congratulate the boss. Isn't this just making it worse? Miles' lips curved up slightly. That's it for today's meeting. After everyone left, I gave Miles a resentful look but accidentally knocked over his water cup. Hot water spilled directly onto Miles' pant. It's so hot. Natalie, how could you be so cruel? Miles' pants were steaming. Is this boiling water? I hurried to squat down, heading and fanning the area. Sorry, I didn't mean to. Really? Before I could finish, the meeting room door was pushed open again. Miles immediately shut up and placed a hand on my head. Colleagues were frownning at the door, their faces turning red. I didn't see anything. You to continue. What is happening? When I looked at the glass, I saw myself kneeling next to Miles' legs, mouth slightly open. Miles' face was flushed red, probably from the pain. Great, this is completely unexplainable. I went into shutdown mode. Now everyone at the company thinks I'm the boss's wife. They believe the embarrassing incident in the meeting room was proof. But Miles and I grew up together, harassed over the years. We've battled with both families and navigated countless challenges. Are we like Sun Wukong and Shu Bajia, destined to be a couple after completing our journey? To avoid suspicion, I left right after work. When I got home, my mom peeked over my shoulder. Miles, why didn't you two come back together? I didn't even look up. He has work at the company tonight and can't make it. Just then, Miles peeked his head through the door. When did I have work at the company? But why is he wearing shorts today? My mom poked my forehead twice and, before I could speak, Miles complained. Blue auntie, I almost couldn't make it today. Natalie took revenge on me and burned me. He showed a red mark on his thigh. Mom gasped and even put down the spatula. What did you burn yourself with? Are there blisters? Have you applied medicine? Miles looked wronged. No, she wanted me to leave work early. I said I wanted to stay and finish up. Mom raised her hand to swat at me. Out of her sight, Miles stuck his tongue out and made a funny face at me. Still hiding? Hurry up and apply medicine to Miles. I glanced at the burn on Miles' thigh. It was just above his knee, but we don't usually touch each other. I declined, but Mom shoved the ointment into my hand. Don't underestimate burns, they're very painful. You were burned by the heater when you were little, and Miles spent the whole afternoon comforting you. I was lost in thought. Indeed, Miles still cares about me. I grew up with his sporadic care and torment. Miles took the ointment from me. I'll do it myself. Still planning to complain about me. Impossible. Miles' leg was indeed red and swollen. Feeling guilty, I applied the ointment gently with a cotton swab. Does it still hurt? I blew on it, just like when he used to ask me if I was okay after I got hurt. Miles didn't speak but looked at me with his ears turning red. Is it hot at my place? Miles scratched his head and turned his face away. Hot, really hot. I glanced at the air conditioner, which was set to 18 degrees. At dinner, he and my dad chatted eagerly. Golden liquor filled the cup again and again, until Miles was about to fall over. I covered his cup with my hand. Drink too much and no one would drive you home. Mom and Dad exchanged glances and then smiled as they left the table. Of course, it was my job to drive him home. Miles was almost leaning on me, and I helped him walk unsteadily. But when I tried to put him in the car, Miles grabbed my wrist and pulled me in with him. Hey, Miles! I was pressed against him, my heart racing. Miles, let go. I'll drive you home. I tried to struggle, but Miles' hand suddenly rested on my back. Don't move around. Distant bubble-like voice. In summer, we wore thin clothes. The warmth of his large hand through my thin short sleeve made me feel overheated. Miles, my cheeks were burning. It must be the noisy cicadas. Hey, let go. I need to drive. Miles not only didn't let go, but also tightened his grip in his dazed state. I said I'll put you under my five-finger mountain. Still so childish at this age, but for some reason, my heart was pounding. The night seemed to light up. I've always known the password to Miles' home, but recently, to avoid gossip, I hadn't been there for a long time. Hey, hold on, don't vomit. I sat Miles on the bed and placed a trash can beside him. I'll go get you some honey water. I headed to the fridge and was surprised to see a variety of fruits and vegetables. When did Miles start cooking for himself? I searched the fridge but couldn't find the honey, the one I bought, until I gave up on the honey and picked up yogurt. I found the honey jar in the kitchen trash, finished. But on closer inspection, there was still more than half a jar. I pursed my lips. 3 minutes later, I found an unopened jar of honey in the cupboard. It had a note on it. That brand of honey is no good, so I got you a bottle a friend brought from abroad. I looked at the honey and then at the fridge. Was there another woman in Miles' home? That picky Miles let someone into his home, and even had them stock the fridge. Miles has a girlfriend. I took my honey back home. Oh, that's the honey Miles and I grew up drinking. That jar of honey had been on my bedside for 3 days, and I still couldn't figure out, when did Miles get a girlfriend? Last time, because of his explanation, everyone at the company thought I was the prospective boss's wife. Not knowing before was fine, but now that I know, should I take the initiative to end this farce? I stayed out at Miles' door. I didn't wait for Miles, but ended up meeting Aunt Michael. Natalie, why don't you go in? I felt a bit guilty, but suddenly thought maybe taking a roundabout approach wasn't such a bad idea. So I linked arms with Aunt Michael. Auntie, I'm waiting for Miles to go to work with me. But recently Miles seems a bit strange. Is he in a relationship? And Michael was even more surprised, almost rushing inside to question him. Fortunately, I quickly stopped her. Auntie, leave this to me. I'll find out for you. And Michael looked at me with a complicated expression. I didn't understand. She sighed deeply before leaving. I waited for Miles to go to work. He pinched my cheeks like when we were kids. Natalie, did someone upset you? Why are you unhappy so early in the morning? I wasn't unhappy. I was just frustrated by my impulsive behavior earlier. I swatted his hand away and squeezed into the back seat for the first time. Miles clicked his tongue lightly. I looked out the window in silence, planning how to start the conversation. Miles, why didn't you explain the slip of the tongue from that night properly? It made everyone misunderstand. Miles smiled slightly and glanced at me through the rearview mirror. I explained. I said that if there's anything else, I would let everyone know immediately. Looking at his profile, something seemed to click in my head. Until I got to the office, I grasped the key point. Yes, Miles only said he would inform everyone of any situation, not mentioning me. He must have been referring to the girl who sobbed his fridge. I began to deliberately distance myself from Miles. To avoid suspicion, I didn't want to be a meddlesome woman. But my mom, unaware, kept insisting I invite Miles for dinner. I declined every time. At the dinner table, I ate with little appetite. Miles has been so busy lately. He used to eat at our house 4 times a week. I poked at my rice absent-mindedly. He probably won't be coming anymore. Mom and Dad set down their chopsticks in concern. Even though Miles often bullies you openly, he actually cares for you. We, as parents, see it clearly. You mustn't bully him. I lowered my head, speech blurring into tears, afraid my parents would notice. I forced myself to stuff the food into my mouth. The braised pork smelled so good, but I couldn't taste a thing. An inexplicable sense of loss weighed on me. I couldn't even pinpoint why I felt so down. Was it because Miles has a girlfriend and didn't tell me? Or was it simply because he has a girlfriend? Originally, due to Miles' deliberate arrangement, there was only a louvered window separating his office from mine. While I was working, Miles suddenly pulled open the louvered window and peeked in with his eyes. Natalie, I'm craving the sticky rice chicken you're and makes. I struggled to resist the urge to turn and look at him, my fingers typing furiously on the keyboard. Sorry, my mom doesn't make sticky rice chicken. Miles on the other side was hopping mad. Impossible. That's something I've eaten since I was a kid. I paused my typing and glared at Miles. Isn't this typical jerk behavior? He already has a girlfriend and still wants to come to my house for a meal, even though we grew up together. It's time to avoid suspicion. I couldn't be bothered to argue with him, so I took a day off the next day. Miles played hardball. No leave unless you exchange it for a sticky rice chicken. I sighed and turned my leave request into a resignation letter. Miles responded with a 60-second voice message. Oh, don't be down. Just go out and have some fun. Paid leave. You know, the honey I brought home was almost finished. Could it be just an illusion? It seemed like the taste wasn't the same as before. I hadn't seen Miles for half a month. During this time, and Michael frequently came over to visit. With the recent good weather, the two families spontaneously decided to go on an outing together on Saturday. I said, I seem to have something to do on Saturday. My mom shot me a load. You've been cooped up at home for half a month. What could you possibly have to do? On Saturday, Miles was as enthusiastic as ever. He casually draped his arm over my shoulder. Have you rested up at home? When are you going back to work? Better go soon or someone might replace you. Our parents were watching us with meaningful smiles, but only I knew that Miles was acting like his sleaze. I kicked him away. No, I'm quitting. Miles was in a state of confusion, while I quickly walked ahead. In the midsummer heat with the sound of cicadas, I stayed under the shade to avoid the heat. When I saw the sun blazing ahead, I was rummaging for an umbrella in my bag. Here, for you, a neatly rolled up little yellow duck umbrella. Drink some water. Miles unscrewed a bottle and handed it to me. I was momentarily stunned. What's up? Miles even pulled out a fan to wave at me. Now you see how nice I am. Come, look at what's in my bag. This time I noticed he had brought a huge backpack for hiking. He took out the items one by one. Sunscreen, water, sun umbrella, portable fan. He even pulled out a pair of sports shoes. I was completely stunned. But both families had already seen this as a normal thing. It turned out that Miles had developed this habit since childhood. This was his standard procedure every time we went out together. Why would you wear canvas shoes for hiking? I changed them after sitting down. Miles was already sitting on a rock waiting for me. I felt a sensing in my eyes and silently turned my head to walk ahead. I walked fast and breathed heavily. I'm not exactly athletic. Hiking is one of my least favorite activities. In the past, it was always Miles who dragged me up the mountain. Natalie, want to sit down and rest for a bit and drink some water. The more he shouted, the faster I walked, as if activating teleportation skills. But suddenly, I heard him singing one-to-one in a lazy voice behind me. I was furious and stopped to glare at him. Miles ran up to me with a smile, handing me a bottle of mineral water. Who made you so angry? Drink some water and keep going. I'll shout the commands for you. I took a deep breath. The question was already on the tip of my tongue. But the question, why didn't you tell me you were in a relationship, was hard to say. I'm fine. I don't want any water. I glanced back, seeing our parents had fallen far behind. But Miles, you're the one who should be keeping your distance, even with a girlfriend. Being so close to me isn't right. Miles remained silent, just keeping a moderate distance behind me. I walked faster, and if I couldn't keep up, he would even overtake me to sit on a rock ahead. Who would choose such an annoying guy as a boyfriend? It's infuriating. Miles yelled from the front. Hurry up. What are you mumbling about? I gritted my teeth. This wasn't just about being angry. It was about my dignity. If I don't make it to the top of the mountain today, I don't know how he'll mock me when we get back. I took the opportunity to pass Miles, but as I passed a patch of grass, a snake suddenly darted out. I screamed in fright, and Miles immediately ran over from a distance. What's wrong? Don't come near, I cried in fear. There's a snake. There's a snake. The snake wasn't big or small. With a shiny, dark body, my legs were trembling in my pants. Natalie, don't move. Don't move at all. I didn't dare to move, but Miles crouched down and slowly circled to the snake's rear. What are you doing? Don't do anything rash. What if it's venomous? I had an inkling of what Miles was trying to do. He suddenly got close, and the snake slithered towards him. My heart raced, but Miles threw a rock in the other direction. Run! But then I heard Miles gasp sharply. The snake had bitten him on the arm. Two clear puncture wounds were visible. I broke into a cold sweat. Miles, is it bad? Is the snake venomous? Does it hurt? What do you feel? I forced myself to calm down, though my voice trembled uncontrollably. Miles' face was also pale. Just as he was about to speak, he suddenly pulled me behind him. The snake that had just bitten him was still hissing in the grass. I didn't care about the fear and quickly took a photo with my phone. Miles, don't move. I called for an ambulance. The medics advised applying pressure to the bite area. Somehow finding the strength, I tore my jacket. Natalie, ew, don't talk. I glared at Miles, my mind racing with worries about what if he was poisoned. Don't move anywhere now. Just wait for the ambulance. I tightly bandaged Miles' arm with my jacket. Do you feel any discomfort? Can you still move your arm? Is there any sensation? Miles' lips were pale. Didn't you say not to move? I was so angry I cried. At a time like this, he's still making jokes. Fine. Stop crying. I'm okay. Natalie, you're worried about me, right? I didn't reply, thinking about how I'd read about using tools to suck out snake venom. I dumped out the contents of my bag, found a thermos, and pulled out some dry tissue. Do you have a lighter? Miles silently pulled out the Zippo I had once given him. I lit the tissue and threw it into the thermos, then quickly pressed the thermos against the wound, which stuck to Miles' arm. Natalie, ew, shut up. I glared at him. After about half a minute, I removed the thermos. Red blood. Is it not venomous? I felt a bit relieved, but Miles seemed to be weakening. He leaned on my shoulder, looking drained. I don't know. My arm feels a bit numb. Help, I might die. Don't worry about me. Remember to take care of my parents. I sucked harder. Tears fell one by one onto Miles' arm, soaking his sweat. If you need to be taken care of, take care of yourself. Even if you die, your girlfriend can't take care of you. It has nothing to do with me. In my peripheral vision, Miles seemed to twitch his mouth, but before he could speak, both families had arrived. Half an hour later, the ambulance arrived. There wasn't enough room for everyone, so both families agreed that I should go. Doctor, if anything happens to my son, just let her sign. We're not related by blood, but it's as if we are. I clambered onto the ambulance, and Miles anxiously held onto my hand. Don't be afraid. Hang in there. We'll be at the hospital soon. Stay strong. The doctor glanced at me, about to speak, but was interrupted by Miles coughing. Natalie, if my arm is left disabled, you'll be responsible. My arm already feels numb. I doubt it can be saved. Tears rolled down his cheeks. A strong sense of guilt overwhelmed me. If only I hadn't walked so fast, maybe we wouldn't have encountered the snake. Don't worry. I wiped away my tears with my sleeve. If anything happens to you because of the snake bite, I will be responsible. After all, Miles had risked himself to save me. Otherwise, it would have been me lying here now. Miles tried to say something, but the doctor looked at him. Close your eyes, conserve your strength, and rest well. I nodded repeatedly, not speaking another word to Miles. I only hoped the ambulance would go faster, even faster. When we arrived at the hospital, Miles was immediately taken into surgery. I had already sent the snake's photo to the doctors. Doctor, please hurry and prepare the antivenom. The doctor glanced at me, then was pulled into the operating room by the nurse. I paced anxiously outside the operating room. Should I inform Miles' girlfriend? My mind was a mess. I kept replaying the scene of Miles rushing to save me without hesitation. Snake bites are dangerous, but he acted so decisively. Miles' backpack was tossed outside the ward by the medics. I went through its contents, and my vision became blurry. Inside the backpack were all the things prepared for me. There was even a pack of sanitary pads. I glanced at the calendar. My period was too soon. I crouched beside the backpack, crying so hard my shoulders shook. Miles was such a jerk. Even though he had a girlfriend, why did he go so far from me? His neighbor? Scumbag. You're the worst. I cursed through my tears, but then I heard a chuckle from behind. It was that infuriating voice. How am I the worst when you're crying so much? The crying stopped abruptly. Miles, with his arm wrapped in bandages, was standing quietly behind me, still the same, with a smug smile on his face. I wiped my tears in confusion and stood up. Did you recover so quickly? Miles grinned. I'm lucky. How was this so different from what I imagined? Seeing I wasn't speaking, Miles leaned closer. Natalie, why do you look a bit disappointed? A doctor passing by smiled at us. Your girlfriend was crying her heart out while you were in surgery. Your girlfriend really cares about you. It's so enviable. Miles' smile was triumphant, and I blushed. It's not like that. Miles grabbed my repeatedly denying hand. Let's go home. I couldn't rest easy about the snake venom and wanted to ask the doctor. He resisted all the way. Oh, I've been checked and I'm fine. I'm not going. I really won't go. Can you really refuse? I pushed him into the doctor's office. Doctor, is there anything we need to pay attention to after this? The doctor gave me a glance. Oh, just avoid water. Don't you need to apply any medicine? Doctor, please check thoroughly. The doctor actually clicked his tongue. He put down his pen and frowned at me. Young lady, I know you're worried about your boyfriend, but he was just bitten by a small snake. Don't waste time here. There are many other patients. I frowned. A small snake. Was the snake not venomous? If it had been venomous, we wouldn't have made it this far. Miles' shoulder shook, and he turned and ran. I activated my teleportation skills once more. Miles chased after me with his injured arm. Natalie, I'm sorry. Can I make it up to you? Really, if you're angry, just hit me a couple of times. This time I really ignored him, hailed a cab, and went home directly. Thinking back, he had started acting up in the ambulance. If he were really poisoned, he wouldn't have had the strength to talk so much. I hit my head, cursing my own confusion. Miss, your boyfriend is chasing the cab. The driver's words broke my train of thought. Looking back, Miles was indeed chasing us. I shook my head. I don't know him. Miles arrived home just after me. Natalie, let me in. He stuck his foot in the door gap. I need to explain. Breathless and red-faced, his short sleeves soaked with sweat. Remove your foot. He was stubborn and tried to push his foot further inside. I was so mad that I slammed the door shut. Miles screamed from outside. It hurts. It hurts. Oh my God. Domestic violence. Help. It hurts. The neighbors across the hall peeked through a crack in their door. I gave up and let go. Miles hopped over to me on one foot. Natalie, you're trying to kill your husband. How shameless can Miles be? I distanced myself from him, glaring with fire in my eyes. Who's your husband? He caught the pillow I threw and smiled confidently. Yours. You called me husband at the company meeting. Everyone knows I'm yours now. And now you don't want to take responsibility. Besides, everyone saw what happened at the hospital. I was momentarily at a loss for words, unable to come up with a rebuttal. I was indeed flustered earlier, overreacting a bit. In these past few days, my jumbled emotions mixed together, and the tears just came pouring out. When I cried, that's when Miles finally became serious. Don't cry. I was out of line earlier, but seeing how concerned you are about me, I just wanted to hear you say more. I'm sorry. I used the pillow to block him from coming closer. I sniffled and said, keep your distance. No physical contact between men and women. And don't talk like that again. You already have a girlfriend. You should be aware of the need to maintain distance from me. Miles frowned. The next moment, I was facing the ground again. He pinned my neck just like when we were kids, not letting me get up. Natalie, when did I get a girlfriend? Unable to break free, I angrily hit the foot Miles had recently caught in the door. After standing up, I said, you know best whether you have a girlfriend. I feigned casualness. Since we've grown up together, why hide it if you do have a girlfriend? Are you afraid I'll tell your parents? Miles stared at me, stunned. Are you indifferent if I'm in a relationship? The next second, he turned away, looking aggrieved. The tall boss, standing at 185 meters, pouted with crossed arms, looking as pitiful as a little wife. I felt utterly bewildered. How ungrateful. I've always kept myself pure for you, and now you accuse me of having a girlfriend. If you don't have feelings for me, just say so. Don't come up with such ridiculous excuses. He glared at me, his eyes running. I wish I really had a girlfriend. I took out the jar of honey. The evidence was overwhelming. Someone filled your fridge and threw out my honey. They said they got you better honey, so this one was discarded. Miles glanced at me and then took the honey jar. Standing up, now I see why I couldn't find it. Natalie, You really are something, taking back a jar of honey you gave away. I sneered. Of course he couldn't find it. If I hadn't happened to look into the trash can, I would have thought he'd eaten it all. Seeing me silent, Miles leaned in, his eyes still red, and tentatively asked, "Someone filled my fridge, and you think I have a girlfriend? And you've been off work these days?" His smile grew wider, jealous. Just as I was about to lose my temper, Miles suddenly softened his tone. "A distant relative came to my house recently, wanting to work at my company. She's actually a distant relative. After I arranged a job for her, she felt awkward and bought some things from the supermarket for my mom to bring to our house." I blinked in surprise, feeling a bit dazed. I knew about this. Miles told me every little thing. He fiddled with the honey jar and asked, "But I didn't expect her to throw this out. Did it make you jealous? Should we send her back to her hometown?" Miles' eyes had a hint of mischief. My face flushed red, and I snatched the honey jar back. "Stop talking nonsense. Who's jealous?" Miles frowned and suddenly leaned over me. "Ew." His fingers traced from my hair to my ear. "Who was crying at the hospital just now? Who called me husband? Who said they would be responsible for me?" I placed my hands on Miles' shoulders, feeling there was no escape. I said that was a slip of the tongue." The man in front of me suddenly looked deeply intense. He spoke gently. "I've waited for years to hear that slip of the tongue." My mind buzzed as if a firework had exploded. Miles' lips slowly descended, tingling. My brain went blank. I only came to my senses when he pulled away, allowing me to breathe. "Miles," I covered his mouth. "You just kiss me. Will my mom hit you if she finds out?" "She's always considered you like a son." Miles kissed the back of my hand and then, without hesitation, pinned my hands above my head. "Guess why there's no one at home today?" I glanced at the wall clock. It had been over an hour since we went to the hospital. They should have been home by now. Miles' fingertips traveled from my ear to my collarbone, and finally to my waist. Auntie Len said, "Don't let good resources go to waste. A good habit shouldn't be given away to someone else's pick." A draft breezed through the living room, and the warm light overhead swayed gently, tender and lingering. Being with Miles made me feel a bit embarrassed about meeting our parents. So the next day, I rushed back to work at lightning speed. My office has been reassigned. I grabbed a colleague and asked, "Do we get new staff in the company?" The colleague gave me a cryptic look and shook their middle finger. "Your desk was moved to the boss's office overnight." There were now 2 desks in Miles' office, and he was sitting at the desk that used to be mine. It was a bit small. He looked somewhat cramped sitting there. "Natalie, good morning." The colleagues were still watching from outside. I squeezed out a few words. "What are you doing?" Miles looked at the colleagues, then stood up and led me to the large desk. The soft leather chair was definitely more comfortable than my old stool. The colleagues' murmurs made me blush. "Don't cause a scene at work." Miles smiled proudly, turned to the colleagues, and cleared his throat. "The boss has some good news. All employees get a paid half-month vacation. Come to the wedding next month. No need to bring gifts." The colleagues cheered. "Boss is awesome. Congratulations to the boss and the boss's wife." I looked at Miles from the side. His smile was full of triumph.
Epilogue Miles ***. Half a month later, I finally married Natalie. She looked even more beautiful in her wedding dress than I had imagined. Unlike all other brides, she kept her long hair down, just like when we were in school. During the makeup trial, she asked me, "Is this really okay?" I helped her with her hair, from the top of her head to the ends. "Why wouldn't it be? You've always been like this since we were kids. Marrying me means you'll stay youthful forever. Natalie, haven't you always done whatever you wanted since you were little?" As the comb glided through her hair, I looked at her seriously in the mirror. "I mean, not just with your hair, but with anything you want to do." The makeup artist smiled, saying she was envious. Natalie blushed and called me cheesy, but I saw the smile in her eyes. During the wedding, Natalie's hand was placed in mine. We vowed together, our fingers intertwined. "I do." The heavens smiled upon us. I truly married the girl I've cared for since childhood. Natalie is now mine. The story ends here. Feel free to subscribe to the channel for the latest updates. New novels are updated daily.